Hey everyone, welcome to a special edition of the Alec, Walt Show. It is me, Conor Robinson, joining me today. Next to me, of course, is Alec, Walt. We're here to talk about the first round win for the Boston Bruins, a 4-1 win against the Washington Capitals. But before we get into all that, Walt, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing well. I woke up this morning, Conor, and I went to Down the Block Sports on YouTube. Our channel, if you haven't subscribed yet, definitely hit that subscribe button right here on Down the Block Sports. And we hit a nice little milestone when it came to subs. We are at 251, officially past that 250 mark. So, Conor, 1, the Bruins advanced, and 2, we've hit a mini milestone in subscribers. So, it's always a fun day when I can talk to the fans here at Down the Block Sports. Even better when I can thank them. So, thank you to everyone who subscribed to our channel. Thank you for everyone who's been here for the last couple months since we've started a little journey here. And for everyone who's listening now who hasn't, please definitely hit that subscribe button. But, you know, the last couple months has been awesome. We've had, multiple guests on the channel for multiple sports teams. Videos hit the thousands. You know, it's been awesome. You guys have been great. Thank you to everyone who's been tuning into us because, you know, we're only here. We've been only here for a couple months, and we're not going anywhere here on Down the Block Sports.
Thank you, everyone, for subscribing, and make sure you hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of our content. Let's just jump right in, Walt. So, looking at the series with the Caps, the Bruins won 4-1, but 3 of those games went to OT. Do you think that that's going to have any role to play moving into the next round of the playoffs here?
See, my one concern with playing the Capitals, yes, they have Ovechkin. They have some quality offensive pieces, but the Bruins had the better top line. They had the better scoring depth. They had the better goalie, and they were healthier. I had a feeling, no matter what the situation was, the Bruins were going to win this series. But my one concern with the Capitals was they're one of the most, if not the most physical team in the National Hockey League. And when you play a team that physical in a postseason playoff series, expecting a few go into OT, you expect to get beat up. It expects to slow you down, expects to hurt you. Yes, it sucks that 3 games went into overtime. That's a lot. That's a lot for a hockey player. But this game ended in 5 games. The Bruins are the second series to end. Plus, in Canada, they started late. So there is a chance that some of these series coming up are going to be a little bit delayed. Now, I know as a Bruins fan, they don't want to hear that because they had 11 days off before the Stanley Cup a couple years ago against the St. Louis Blues, and that led to a 7-game loss. But for a Bruins team where I was really only concerned about health, the only player that went down, unfortunately, in that series is Kevin Miller due to a complete cheap shot by Dmitry Orlov, who got off with pretty much nothing. He had to play a fine, no suspension, and I think the NHL absolutely royally screwed up that situation. But, obviously you don't want to see her go into overtime 3 times, but, the Bruins were successful. They got this series over in 5 games. Their opponent still hasn't been decided. They have to finish their series. So for a team that had to go to OT that many times, I'm way more comfortable than I'd normally be because this game ended in 5 instead of 7. And for a team that's very physical as an opponent, they're really not that beat up going into the next round.
And you mentioned, 3 OTs against a very physical team. All season they had 7 OT losses, so they did a good job to keep, on the winning side of that. You also mentioned Ovechkin. He only had 2 goals to assist in this series, so they did a good job. What do you think was the key to keeping him a little bit quiet?
Yeah, I mean, the Bruins have a history of doing very well against some of these players. Now, Ovi has a history of killing the Bruins, but, they had a lot of situations where he was going up against guys. Like, the Bruins blocked a lot of shots. They did leave way too many shots towards Tuukka, though. Like, Tuukka was saving some absolute missiles. Washington's got some guys that can shoot the hell out of the puck. Oshie, Ovechkin, Mantha, Backstrom, Carlson, those guys have absolute cannons for shots. Now, Ovi did have a relatively good series, 4 points overall. So it wasn't like he was irrelevant. It wasn't like that series a couple years ago where we shut down Sidney Crosby and it was a sweep. But, Washington overall just I didn't love how they looked offensively. Yes, they got a lot of one-timers off. A lot of them went directly into Tuukka's chest. But, when you're going up against that top line, Bergeron, Marchand, you're going up against some of the better defense, one of the best defensive pairs in the entire league. So overall, I mean, Ovi also was wicked pissed off at his teammates a bunch of times. You know, Washington was injured going into this series. It was just, Washington was not in a good state going into this series. The Bruins were. So, 4 points for Ovi. He's going to get his points regardless, but, he didn't take over a game, and it led to the Bruins winning this series in 5 games. So good for them for getting that first win. But when you have 3 different goalies, when you have injuries going into the series, it's just the Capitals were in a bad spot, and Ovi wasn't truly in a position to dominate at any point in the series.
You mentioned Tuukka Rask and him having to save a lot of shots. I'm looking at the save percentages game over game, and it actually is increasing. So as the series went on, he had a better and better performance. Do you think he can keep this form up going into the next round?
Yeah, I mean, Tuukka's one of the better goalies in the National Hockey League. A lot of people give him crap because he's never won with the Boston Bruins. He's had some performances in major games where he's completely fallen apart. And, in this series, the Bruins were down 1-0. Obviously, they were dealing with a lot of goaltending changes in this series. Vitek got hurt in game 1, Craig Anderson, then Samsonov. Samsonov lost some trust for some of the teammates after that goaltending mistake that led to a Craig Smith goal in overtime. But, when you have a number 1 goalie, you got to trust your number 1 goalie. And in this series, when they needed him, they let off a ton of shots in that game yesterday. But, he was there. He did an outstanding job. So, for Tuukka, I trust that he can take this team very far. This defense has stepped up a little, specifically offensively. I mean, there was a series. Charlie McAvoy had 3 assists. Mike Riley had his coming out party yesterday, who is going to help a lot more on the power play moving forward. So when it comes to Tuukka Rask right now, he's playing some of his best hockey of the season. They needed him to play well. He showed up. He's performed well. He's been there for the Bruins. Obviously the series are going to get tougher. Washington is one of the worst teams, if not the worst team they're going to play in this postseason. And that's not just because of Washington overall. It's just Washington right now. When I spoke to Ben Ravy before the series, it seemed like half their team was day-to-day. Their goaltender was out in the first game of the season. They had to rely on a goalie coming off the COVID IL to play for them, and that's just a tough situation. You need to get hot at the right time going into the playoffs. The Bruins added Taylor Hall. The Bruins found their line construction. They got some health back on the defensive side, and Tuukka Rask, of course, came back from his injury around the deadline and is now playing some pretty good hockey. So things came together at the right time for the Bruins, specifically in net. Things did not come together at the wrong time for the Capitals. Had moving pieces in net. It just shows how important it is for having a quality goaltender here in the postseason. They had 3 different guys in Washington. Bruins had 1 who played outstanding. The Bruins are advancing while the Capitals are not. So if I'm the Bruins, I'm pretty confident because whoever they play in the next series, whether it's Pittsburgh or New York, the Bruins are going to have the goaltending advantage in that series as well.
So who would you like to see? Who's your preferred matchup? I know the Penguins and the Islanders are completely different in terms of style of play. Who would you prefer to play against?
Well, I mean, I think the Bruins would beat both of them personally. I think with the goaltending advantage they have, I mean, I would prefer. It's weird because the Islanders are easier, but they're way more physical, and they gave the Bruins a lot of issues in this last series, this past season. But obviously, no Anders Lee for the New York Islanders. That's a big loss. He's been out for a good majority of the season. Yes, they did add scoring depth at the trade deadline. Their team would be unbelievable right now if Lee was still healthy. But, I mean, I would rather play the Islanders. I think the Bruins would beat the Islanders pretty well. The Islanders would give the Bruins a lot of fits. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's Sidney Crosby, solid scoring depth, a coach that's been there before, a head top defenseman that's been there before. I don't love them in net. I think the Bruins have the advantage in that series as well. But, it's Sidney Crosby in the playoffs. We've seen this before. This guy has multiple Stanley Cup championships. He's been there before. Even in seasons where we didn't expect Pittsburgh to win it all, he led them to the promised land. So, this team's no joke. They got depth. They can hit. They can skate. They can score. They historically have problems in Boston. And the Bruins' top-line pairing of Bergeron and Marchand are great defensively, like I mentioned before, and they've had shutdown series against Sidney Crosby. So Who would I rather prefer? Who would I prefer to play? The Islanders. I think the Islanders would just be a lot easier. I think the Bruins would advance quicker against the Islanders, but they'd be more beat up. I still think the Bruins have the chance to beat Pittsburgh, but I don't think that series goes 5 games. If they play Pittsburgh, it's going possibly 6 or 7. But again, you can't count out Sidney Crosby in the playoffs. You can't. As much as Bruins fans don't like him, as much as hockey fans don't like him, you absolutely can't. So bring on Pittsburgh. I do think they end up winning this series. Again, I just don't. No Anders Lee makes me nervous in a series for the Islanders, but hey, they can hit, they can grind out wins. You never know what happens. So either way, I love that the Bruins have time off to prepare for it. Again, they came out of a Washington Capitals series only having one injury with someone like Kevin Miller. They can bring up guys like Trent Frederick if series get more physical down the road. Bruins are really, really, really good spot right now, no matter who they play.
Yeah, and you mentioned, adding Taylor Hall, who had a couple goals in the series. Bruins had 9 different goal scorers in the series, which I think is a really impressive feat there, considering it was only 5 games. And, you mentioned guys like Bergeron and Pasternak and all these other guys. Who do you think steps up in the next series? Do you think there's going to be a surprise name, or is it kind of the same players that we expect to perform?
I think someone who's going to step up in this next series, if they're playing Pittsburgh, because this player's had a history of not performing well in physical series. And that's David Pasternak. He's a guy that stepped up in that last series. There were times during that opening series against Washington where you're like, where's David Pasternak? Is this guy still on the ice? We hear Bergeron's name, Marchand's name. Where's Pasternak? And we've seen before when they played the Lightning, when they played the Blues, that teams can beat up on David Pasternak. And yesterday, he had a beautiful goal in front of the net. He faked out 2 defensemen, and Samsonov didn't have a chance to save that shot. So, I think with him being quiet there in that opening series, I expect a ton out of David Pasternak, no matter who they play. That top line was awesome yesterday. They needed that top line to show up to end the series. 2 goals from Patrice Bergeron, 1 from David Pasternak. Again, they're a team that had some solid scoring depth in this series. At the beginning of the series, they had goals from guys like Jake DeBrusk, Charlie Coyle scored, an OT. Even though it wasn't the most beautiful goals, that second line, I still think that second line is going to step up as well. One of Taylor Hall's goals was unstoppable. But then the other effort play goal. Second line also, Craig Smith around the net. Of course, the goalie wasn't paying attention, but the puck went in the back of the net. I expect our second line of Hall, Krejci, Smith to step up even more as well. I still think they're not even close to where we should see them before. Hall looked phenomenal. He was skating. He was creating separation. He was getting shots up. A couple situations where when he deked, he hit the puck a little too hard and kind of screwed himself up position-wise. But, he looks like the fastest guy on the ice. Taylor Hall looks unfreaking believable. His passing looks great. Still waiting to hit a few more shots. I still think that line has a little bit more going to go. But expect if they play Pittsburgh, remember the name David Pasternak. Not too hard. He's one of the better goal scorers in the league. And I do think that Krejci, Smith, Hall line, because remember, Krejci got annihilated by Alex Ovechkin in the first game. Early in the first game. And I do think that messed with him a little bit in the series. Have some time off. Get ready for a Pittsburgh team you're very familiar with. And I do think 2 of those skill guys on the first and second line step up a lot. But I do love the fact that we're seeing more production out of guys like Charlie Coyle, Jake DeBrusk. The Bruins got lines for days, man. They got guys who can score. Their defense is improving as well on the offensive side. I'm telling you, man, this Bruins team is starting to play some good hockey at a great time. And if their second line steps up, and David Pasternak starts scoring more goals earlier in series, watch the hell out, because this team can make a run for the cup.
I do think it'll be an interesting matchup if they do play the Pens. Both teams, losing 16 games in the regular season, but, they had the 2 highest goal differentials of the East Division there. Yeah. So do you see that being more of a shootout, high-scoring games? I know we've seen the Tampa Bay Lightning and the Florida Panthers have multiple games where, even though the goaltenders are playing well, it's still, 3, 4, 5 goals, for each team.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're talking about Sidney Crosby, Jake Gensel, Zucker, I mean, I could go on and on with some of their roster. They got guys who put the puck in the net. You screw up defensively, there's a chance that puck's going through the net. Like, if the Bruins want to get past this series, they need Tuukka on top of his head like he was last time. And if it's a Bruins fan, I feel pretty confident in that because of how well they're playing right now. Plus, the Islanders are a physical team. They're playing the Penguins right now, and there's a chance that Pittsburgh could be a little bit more beat up going into this game. That series isn't over. It's playoff hockey. You never know how long it's going to go. So, yeah, there's going to be skill over the ice. David Pastrnak on the Bruins, Taylor Hall, David Krejci. These two teams have some solid scoring depth with some guys who will hear their name in the Hall of Fame down the road. So I think this series is pretty obvious. You got to play defense. You got to play solid in net. Both teams, when given separation, when given the chance on the power play, can put the puck in the net. Sidney Crosby is one of the best players in the National Hockey League for a reason. There's a reason every single player on his line is always productive. Pittsburgh is not a team you can sleep on. Plus, they can hit. They got like Chris Tanev. They got a bottom line that'll get to you. They got some defensemen that will hit you. And that's the best part about this series is both teams can skate. Both teams can hit. I think the Bruins have the edge defensively. I think both top lines are excellent. I think both power plays are excellent. I've been saying for a while, I do wish the Bruins had additional defenseman depth. Obviously, having a Brandon Carlo back is huge, but this could be a situation where not having Kevin Miller could hurt them. I mean, you look at their offense right now. Their defense right now, you're relying on guys like Mike Riley, Matt Grzelcyk, Connor Clifton, not the biggest guys, but they're guys that can skate. They're guys that can be physical. Clifton's been a little bit more of a daredevil this past series than I thought he would be. Obviously, he's required to take more of a physical role on the bottom line without Miller around. Tenorti, he makes me a little nervous because he's not the fastest. I feel like Pittsburgh's just going to blow past him a bunch. So if he's in a situation where he's on an island, needs to skate behind him, I'm pretty nervous, but he can hit. So if you go near him, you're kind of screwed. So at the end of the day, who's going to play better in net? Who's going to play better defense? I think the advantage right now does go to the Bruins, but there's going to be some games in this series where they're hitting some absolute snipes because Pittsburgh can move the puck, Boston can move the puck, and in a 7-game series, we're going to see some games where the scorers are in the fives need to win the game.
Absolutely, an exciting matchup. Tentatively, of course, we have to make sure that
they could still play the Islanders, but I don't think the Islanders win this series. I don't.
So tentatively speaking, it could be the Isles still with the series tied at 2-2.
So again, they have an extra game to play. Like I didn't even mention that part. You have to win 4 games, so they still have at least 2 games to play.
Yeah,
that only helps. I mean, unless the Bruins are sitting for like a week and a half, which isn't going to happen. Obviously, they're going to have to figure something out with this Canadian schedule, but. That I didn't even mention that previously. That should only help the Bruins more. Again, they're physical. I still think they get the win. But 2 extra games against a physical team in the opening round of the playoffs. That's why I'm happy this series ended short for the Bruins. Because if you go into game 6, game 7 against a team like the Caps who are going to crush you into the boards, you're going to feel it. And they're going to have 2 more games of definitely feeling it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Walt, pleasure as always. Everyone, make
yeah.
sure that you like this video, subscribe to Down the Block Sports, smack that notification bell for all 251-ish of our subs. Hey, we could have added some. We thank you. We appreciate you. This wouldn't be possible without you. So keep, being there for us, and we will put the best content out possible. With that being said, have a nice day, morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're watching. Enjoy this, and it's one of the best times of the year, playoff hockey. So Walt's excited, I'm excited, and that wraps things up for us. Stay tuned for more exclusive content from Down the Block Sports.